clarify this a little bit. This is 1982, March 3rd, 1982, and this is a reunion at Uncle Vance's house in Tucson, Arizona. It's my understanding, and this could be totally wrong, and that's why I'm interested in this, is that he came over to America. Did he come through Canada?
No, he came over from Poland just prior to the war.
1913.
And he came to Ellis
He shipped out of Holland. Amsterdam, Holland.
He skipped
We had his
out of Europe so he wouldn't be drafted.
Is it
he had
Russian
to have
service?
his work pass on a pretense that he's going to go to work in Germany. And once he had his passport made out, and then he went over to once he got beyond the border, he went by Germany to all it meant that having his passport, and he went to the Columbia line in Amsterdam, where he came first, and then Mother was sent her passport from this country. About 6 months later, she came.
Okay, now, they knew each other when they was in Poland then?
They were married in Poland.
Oh, they were married in Poland?
Oh, yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, just before he came over?
Oh,
only a
maybe
few
6
months.
months.
Okay. And they came in, you said 1913?
In 1913, yes.
And John, you were born in 1950?
15.
Okay.
But the previous two, that one, our oldest brother died at birth.
We had the same name as I did.
Yeah,
Botswa. And then I inherited his name.
How do you say that name again?
Botswa.
Botswa.
Yeah. Mom was born in November.
It was November 25th?
Yeah.
1990?
You want a little one?
Yes.
I mean 1890.
And Dad was born 10 years
1880.
previously.
1880 in April, but...
Yeah, so they both died at the age of 80.
They landed at Allenstein.
Right.
That's where they get processed.
Okay, now, Vance, you told me, and correct me if I'm wrong, is when your father was born,
Yes.
his name was spelled different than even we spelled.
Yeah,
there was an I after
yeah,
the Z,
yeah,
K-A-Z-I-M-I-E-R-S-K-I.
Yes.
And that's the same way when I was in Poland. Two of his brothers are still the same way, Z-I.
Yeah.
Are they still alive?
No, none of them are alive now. They're all. There was 6 brothers.
Any sisters?
There was no sisters in our family. So it's all but
boys.
Ignatz.
Right.
Let's see, Kazmir, and my father's name was Wojciech or Albert.
And Felix.
And then they had Uncle John and Felix.
So there was 6, huh?
6. And on my mother's side,
At least
she had about 7 sisters and 1 brother. I think the oldest one was Magdalena and Mary, and my mother came was Catherine, and after that it was either Teresa or there was 3 other sisters on top. No, it was.
What city were they from?
Yeah, what city were they from?
Galicia?
No, William.
No,
Lutz. My mother was from Lowitz,
Lowitz?
and my father was.
Lovitz, and Mother was from Skaratki.
That's just the.
There were 2 villages that were not too far distant, Skaratki and Lovitz.
Is that near somewhere near the center of Poland?
Near Warsaw.
Yeah, and in that area of Warsaw, yeah. See, they were under that Russian domination. There was German and Austrian, and they were under the Russian part.
Yeah. Well, you know, when I was in Poland, I met, the only ones I met on my father's side was Uncle Felix's 2 sons.
You all.
There was Stanley and Chester.
Felix didn't live very long, did he?
No. So he was the youngest, but he died when he was in his middle 60s. And then there was Uncle John. Uncle John had, that I know, had Uric and his sister.
He was older. He was the oldest one.
Well, there was two in that family, and Jörg is a doctor now, and his sister is a dentist.
Okay, so he come over in 1913, and your mother came over right afterward,
About 6 months later.
6 months later. And they went to Ellis Island, because that's where they had to come through.
Yeah. Look,
And then where'd they go from there, right?
By train to Chicopee.
where else?
Right to now he had relatives there, must have.
My Uncle Frank had been there over a year.
Well,
So
my
he came
father's
down to see
brother.
my,
Yeah, I know, I
He was
remember.
already, Frank was already settled.
he was already on Front Street.
Mhm.
And he recommended my father, my mother to live with a family by the name of Lavandowskis.
Mhm.
And right up to now, we still like the Lavandowskis. We always thought we were cousins, but we weren't. We were just
France?
Very good
Friends, yeah.
very good friends. That no, they took my mother and father in when they came to Chicopee.
Mhm. Now, when they came here, they came to totally Polish community.
Right,
They
just
totally
Chicopee.
spoke
They used
Polish.
to call it
and
Mała Polska.
Yeah, yeah,
Little
little
Poland.
Poland.
yeah.
They even had a Polish mayor.
Okay.
But you also spoke, you first learned.
I was better at Polish than English,
Yeah.
right?
Because for one reason, we weren't allowed to talk English.
At home,
Because
and we weren't allowed to go anyplace else.
Pop had visions of going back to Poland after a few years. And he even had his passport made out.
He's gonna return to Poland.
Mm-hmm. No, what did your father do for a living? He worked at a carpet factory, I remember that.
Well, when we lived in Chicopee, he worked for the Moore Drop Forge.
Uh-huh.
What did he do there?
What did he do?
He was helper to the blacksmith.
Uh-huh.
He used to weld the hammer down.
And then when you moved to or to Thompsonville,
1921.
so what kind of work did he do, like in the 20s?
He was a laborer.
In the 30s? Laborer?
In the 30s, he worked at
Bigelow.
Bigelow Sanford, and
The
he
dye
worked
house.
in the dye house as a production worker.
Rug company, wasn't it?
The
Yeah.
Depression came along.
Right.
What?
Yeah, that was the Depression.
Well, I know, but even.
He lost his job during the Depression. And during the Depression, of course, he worked on that CPA project that they...
WPA.
WPA.
WPA. Which meant that, well, you had your shovel and you were assigned work, and some worked and some didn't, but at least you got your wages,
Mhm.
which was part of Franklin Delano Roosevelt's program.
What were the wages then?
Yeah, that's...
$14 a week.
You can speak for yourself, though. You supported the family sometime when you started shoe shining,
Well, I helped.
right? Now, how much money did you make sometime over the weekends?
$2.40
Yeah, no, about $5.
for a weekend.
For a weekend?
That's a lot of money in them days, $5.
At a nickel shine, you have to you figure out how many shines you have to make. You make $35.
I was the first shoe shine in the town.
First one in town?
Mm-hmm. I had my little box.
Where'd you shine shoes at? By the movie theater?
By the movie theater, by...
By the police station.
Up and down Main Street.
I had my lawyers. I had a big trade. They could pay me a dime.
And then you got 100% profit?
I'd have the doctors, and I'd have the chief of police, and
The firehouse?
Oh, yeah, at the firehouse.
Firehouse was my big trade.
Those guys had a sharp, huh?
Yeah. These fellas would be staying around the fire engine, waiting for something to happen, and nothing else to do, so they get the shoe shine.
How much money did you make on a paper run back then? I mean, a paper could only cost a penny or two.
We made a half a cent.
We must have made at least $10 on a paper route.
A month.
$6 to $8
A month?
a week.
Oh, a week.
I don't do
Who's
that. I don't do that.
We had, how many?
We had
We had 60
At least 60 customers.
60 customers, and we got
and 30 cents a day.
$0.75.
And on Christmas, we used to get double.
Now, that doesn't seem to you now like a lot of money. And it
Okay.
probably wasn't even then. but, for a dime, I could go to a movie on a weekend, spend all afternoon at the theater.
Yeah, but during this time, you know, during the Depression, every summer, all the kids worked out in the tobacco fields. Don't forget that. Labor Day, that's where all the farmers had the tobacco. They had to get it in before the frost.
That's right.
So they postponed opening the school for 2 weeks so that they get the tobacco crop in.
What kind of money do you make working tobacco fields?
If you made $2.50, you made good.
About $1.25.
$1.75 a day.
And this,
I used to work for $2 a day.
$2. Well, you can later. Yeah. You make 20 times. You make $80 a month. That's big money.
About $80 a month.
So you could support a family on that?
Or you can support a family on less than $10 a month.
Oh, yeah.
To buy a loaf of bread for a dime.
What, now, when you were growing up, all four of you, what was the situation between like your mother and father? Wasn't she sick for a while?
She went in the hospital when I was about 7 years old, and she come out when I was 12.
7 years.
Eddie was just born, but he was about 3 years old when she went to the hospital, and she was in the hospital 7 years.
What'd she have? I mean,
Well, if you want to go to the background.
Well, she had a nervous disability,
Well,
a nervous condition.
she was sick and out of the family for 7 years.
Yeah.
that's right.
And that must have had some effect on the family.
Everybody was on their own.
Okay, that,
Well, I was 10, and of course, Stanley was 8, and John was 12, and of course Eddie was at that time 3.
Well, I remember that time when we were still going to high school, and we used to come home. I used to come home all the way from the high school, and Mrs. Augustiniak used to have her our supper all made, and we'd go down there and pick it up. And when my father come back,
Yeah, they were very faithful that way, yeah.
the neighbors helped us a lot.
yeah.
This was a year after high school,
Mhm.
1935.
Now, you also went to college. Was that after the war or before the war?
Oh no, you were in high school, didn't you?
During the time I was working at the Bigelow, when I went to
Northwestern?
Northeastern, that's nice.
Didn't you also go to Syracuse University?
That's later, after I come out of the service.
Okay. GI Bill?
What?
GI Bill?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's about 1935. Your mother's home. Does the family got some continuity going at this point again? I mean, as far as family lifestyle, you're gone already. Or
Well, what do you mean gone?
well,
Oh, I was working at the Bigelow.
Everybody
okay,
was home.
you're 20 years old and you're still living at home at that time.
At the Bigelow, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're living on New Street, and
Right.
and that's the place.
Well, when our mother, your grandmother, came home, we lived on Martin Street.
Uh-huh.
And then, when she got home, then we looked at it, then my father looked for a better apartment, and he found one over on New Street.
Much more expensive. I think it was
Yeah, it was
$18
Up on a room.
$18
$17.
18? I thought it was 18.
Now, how much of that? Now, that building, or even at the time, I remember, like in the '60s, early '60s or late '50s,
Yeah.
they were renting there.
Yeah, renting, there was
Okay.
4 apartments
Right.
on 3 floors.
Cold water flats, that's what they used to call them.
Okay, so 1935, you're working at Bigelow's. You're,
C.C. Kent.
I was
and where'd you go?
2 years in CC camp.
Where at?
Oh, I started out with, in Connecticut, and then I...
Wound up in Colorado,
No, in New Hampshire.
New
I
Hampshire.
spent most of my time gypsy mud hunting on
What's I don't know. What's gypsy mud hunting?
gypsy moths.
Moths.
Oh, moths.
Moths.
Moths. What kind of money are you making in CC? Did you even get paid?
That was a good, we used to be some...
Used to be $1 a day.
$1 a day.
$21 a month.
We were allowed to keep 5 and 25 went to home. Which was part of Roosevelt's poverty program.
Okay, so really the family, it would appear, now maybe I'm wrong, was not living too bad at that time with you working and living at home, plus your father working. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
you know, not living high in the hog, but at least living.
No,
Well,
it wouldn't hurt it.
Keep the wolf
We
from
weren't
the door.
dirty.
Yeah.
We only didn't work very long. We worked 1 day or 2 days a week.
Uh-huh.
It was during the Depression. So during the Depression, when somebody was in the CCs, other people were on part-time work. And,
And then what did you do when you weren't working? You gotta be someplace.
played basketball. John was training for track, javelin, shot put.
That was when he was in school.
In school.
Yeah, well, that's during that time.
No, well, you're working at this Bigelow outfit now.
Well, that's part of high school.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah.
You're about 20 years old then. I'm 35.
Well, that was good times.
Okay, did anything of any significance that could be discussed happen between, say, 35 and the time the war started? Because that'd be the next big major event, I would assume.
Yeah, we had a strike at Bigelow, and we were on picket line, and we.
Now, did you also work at Bigelow's then?
Yeah.
Everybody met with me.
Well, John always got me a job in Bigelow.
You got money down too.
And I was determined I was never gonna work there. I used to watch them look down when I was going to high school, look down at that loom, and there was all kinds of people there, and they grew old there, and I said, never gonna work there. I never did.
Is that Bigelow still operating? Is it still going?
No, that's.
Freddie's the last one there, didn't she?
I closed the place up.
When was that? Because I remember it going in the...
Firehouse. The firehouse was the last thing to go.
Let's see, it was, one, 7 years now, we closed up.
7 years?
Yeah.
Then the war broke out, and that obviously is a big,
Yeah.
significant thing that happened at that time. Say about 1940. I mean, you know, the attitude must have been that there was going to be a war coming out because they were fighting.
That's right, that's
In Europe, there was beating each other up pretty bad.
When'd you get drafted? 1942?
Yeah.
That's when they drafted everybody, took out the
39.
baseball.
It started in 39 when they started going into service.
Was that when the draft was? When they first started the?
About 40.
1940, the first bunch of guys out of that left Thompson. He was one of the first ones to go.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because I was a fireman, they want somebody strong.
A week and a half.
Yeah, right,
What'd you go into, the Army?
the infantry,
Infantry?
yeah, that's the
Army.
army,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, and John, you was in the Air Force.
Well, I worked there
Army Air Corps.
at Bigelow, and I took a test as an aviation cadet. All right? And so then they gave me a deferment for a whole year. I had to wait until, while I was waiting, I was still working for the Bigelow. And then when they called me, I just left. 1943, the spring of 43.
And then where'd you go during the war?
Well, 11 months in the cadets.
So now it's about 44.
Well, did you get, you couldn't quite make products, did you?
That's right. I got washed out as a pilot, and then I went to gunnery school. And from gunnery school, right out, they put me on a B-17 bomber as a gunner.
That was B-17 or?
3 months after they put on a B-17, I was over in England.
Did you go to navigation school?
No.
In 1943, you were in England or where?
Yeah,
So you're already transported over to England,
right.
and you were actively bombing, being a radio gunner
Right.
Which
on a
gunner?
B-17.
No, waist gunner.
Waist gunner.
Yeah.
That's on. Okay, so you was on 30 missions.
Yeah.
So you was.
Took us 11 months to put in 30 missions
Yeah.
in England, from 1943 to from April till November we were there.
And then where'd you go from there?
Well, we come back to the States.
Well, after you completed 30, you were allowed to, then that was considered,
When we switched seats,
Oh, you don't just stay there till the end of the war.
No, they shipped us back to the States.
Right.
And they sent us to
R&R.
Camp Davis, or no, Fort Thomas, Kentucky, 30-day rehabilitation.
Uh-huh.
And from there, they sent us to Atlantic City. And they reassigned us to go B-29 schools. In other words, another war coming, so they, over in Japan, they got a, and we had to go to B-29 school. In the meantime, I got reprocessed and I got sent to Camp Davis as a BT instructor. From there, I went to the beach. The Army men used to go swimming in the ocean. We had to be lifeguards.
Oh, okay. Okay, but your 30 missions, that was before the invasion, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What places did you, I mean, was there any significant battles that a guy could pick up in the history book and read that you might have been involved in?
Well, D-Day, Leipzig,
No,
Berlin.
you were there during D-Day.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
30 missions, you was pretty lucky then.
I was a lucky bastard.
Like that.
You had a close call there when you lost your oxygen.
Yeah. Well, we were in Leipzig when the oxygen system was shot away. See, so we all had to crawl through the fuselage down to the other end of the ship where the oxygen was still good. And in the meantime,
How high up were you flying? It must have been
32,000 feet. You're always up there.
Yeah.
See, this was over the Tiger when this all happened.
Right.
This flak comes up through the fuselage.
Now,
Oh, well, I went before the board. I was the only one to the Army camp. And saw the folks line up, the roll call. And the commanding officer called me in. He says, "You don't want to be with them guys." He hands me my tickets, and he says, "Report to Colorado." I got there the day before Christmas. And when I got there, I was there 11 months. Then
what did you do in Colorado?
we built dams. Afterwards, I volunteered for the VA hospital, and I worked at VA psych wards for 13 months.
In Colorado?
No, this was when I was transferred over to New Jersey. And I had put in extra time. See, after you were there 1 year, you could go back to camp if you wanted to.
Camp we called Colorado.
Or reassigned. In my case, we went to New York. And there, I was about, a year and a half. The war ended, and I stayed on. It was 6 months before I was discharged. I was discharged in 1946.
Well, what I did to get into the Marine Corps was, I volunteered to go into the Marine Corps, but I held off until I was sure I was being drafted. And then when I was drafted, I said I was going to go in, and I went into the Marines as a choice, as a voluntary action. I didn't want to be drafted, forced into it, so I forced myself into it as a volunteer. And I went in September. I was in boot camp.
September what year?
1941.
So it was before Pearl Harbor.
Before Pearl Harbor. And then I went through boot camp, and I got out of boot camp. I was waiting to be assigned, and then Pearl Harbor happened. And
Now, at the time you joined, did you have any idea that you'd be in the Pacific when you joined?
No.
All you was thinking about was Europe.
I wasn't thinking, period. I was just being in the service.
Put him in his time. What'd you have to put in? 3 years, 2 years?
4 years.
4 years. That's right. That was.
But I mean, like in September, before Pearl Harbor, wasn't the only thought about war was in Europe? They didn't really think
No,
about it.
I didn't think about war when I was drafted. I just, being in the services and being in the Marines, I had no idea what was going on. We were there for
3 months?
6 weeks
6 weeks.
in boot camp.
So still the war, I mean,
Oh yeah,
it was still before
I thought I was going to be transferred into the Fleet Marines right away, but our platoon was called that we trained together, and I was assigned to Philadelphia Navy Yards to do guard duty. And I was at Philadelphia for a period of about 3 months. I was transferred from Philadelphia down to Cape May, New Jersey. The third time they transferred me over to Quonset Point, Rhode Island. And then in Quonset Point, Rhode Island, I did duty there, and then they transferred me from Quonset Point up to Foxton. That was a auxiliary unit from Quonset Point. And then I volunteered for the Raiders, Carlson's Raiders.
Now you knew what was going on at that point.
Yeah, the war was on, and Carlson's Raiders would be an elite force that went into the Pacific, and we'd have raids. But I volunteered, figuring, they said the casualty rate would be very high on it, but I did anyway, because I was bored with doing guard duty. So I didn't make Carlson's Raiders, because I wrote letters home or something.
What do you mean you wrote letters home? I don't follow.
They figured if you had attachments, they didn't want you.
Okay, yeah, I can appreciate that.
And then, since I volunteered for the Carlson's Raiders, the next group that was supposed to go out to the Fleet Marines, since I already volunteered to go into the Carlson's Raiders, they said, well, he wants to get out anyway. He doesn't want a safe job, so they sent me out to the Fleet Marines. And I got into the Fleet Marines, and then we had basic training. And
Okay, now how long a period are we talking about? You went in September 41, you, now,
about 42,
yeah, a year?
about a year. In 1942, we were shipped to the Fleet Marines, and we had Fleet Marine training.
Was that, now where was that, Pearl Harbor?
That was at that was in the Elliott. Let's see, where was it? Elliott in California. And then we got into a replacement op, and we transferred from Elliott down to New Caledonia to join the replacements at Guadalcanal.
Then please don't do that.
And when down in New Caledonia, I was down there for about 3 months, and we worked 8 hours on, 8 hours off for about unloaded ship. And then from there we were transferred. We went to New Zealand as the Marines on Guadalcanal were being replaced. The 8th Marine Division was taken back into a regroup area, and that's where I joined them out.
Okay, so now it's about 43?
1943. Then we were trained for about for another year, and we had a lot of practice landings, and we had liberty in New Zealand, Wellington, and then finally we got together and we were going to hit some island, Gilbert Islands, and we got aboard troop transports, and we were heading out, and we got word that we were heading for Guadalcanal. The Japanese had notified the crew that they were going to Gilbert Islands. They knew where the hell we were going when we left New Zealand. And we were aboard ship for about 35 days, and we finally hit Tarawa, Gilbert Islands. We were assigned to go in as the reserve outfit, but the fighting was so heavy that within 3 hours we were called to hit the beach, and we got into our landing craft, and guys were being brought back. There was very heavy casualties. There were 60 or 80% casualties. There guys are being wiped out. They had a very small beach then.
He wrote me a letter from Clarkson now, I remember.
And we got aboard the landing crafts, and the fight was so heavy that nobody could get in. The casualties were too high. So we circled for all day and all night, and next morning we hit the beach. We bombed the island so damn much that
The Navy bombed them.
Huh?
The Navy.
The Navy, the Army, and the Marines, the whole bunch. They were supposed to have B-24s come in and drop, I think, 24,000 two-ton bombs before we landed, but they never showed up. But on the second morning of action, we were dumped on the Coral Beach. There was the landing craft couldn't get over the Coral Beach because the whole island was raised up out of the water for some reason or other. And I had to walk in about 800 yards through machine gun fire, through 3 foot of water, and when we were walking in, we were being shot at for, I don't know, about 3/4 of an hour. We're just walking in. And
That's where you were wounded?
yeah, well, let's see, we walked in, and then we were joking while we were talking, we were in the water, because I said, these bastards are trying to kill us. And it was a nice warm day, and it was nice and sunny, and there was no clouds out, the water was warm, and all you hear about over your head were these snaps and crackers and pops. These are, I don't know, they must have been mosquitoes.
Right.
And we were very, very long in the water, and we had a jetty here, 700 yards long on one side. The Japs were underneath. They were firing at us from from under there. And there's an old ship over here that they had Japs there, that they were firing at us, and there were Japs on shore. And then there's Japs on the other side of the island with machine guns, and they fire over the head of shore and just into the attack area, Green Beach 1 and 2. And we were wiped out. The whole thing was, the whole water was red with blood and everything else. And we just walked in, and you could look down shore and you can see these bullets coming. A machine gun's is strafing you, so the bullets are coming down in sheets, so they hit the water. And you figure, where the hell is the bullets going to be, so you move over so the bullets would straddle you as you walk in. So anyway, our bunch was being cut down. We were losing men by the score, and our orders were to not to stop for anybody. Just keep going in. Don't try to save anybody. Just keep on going in. We were told to load, and friendly troops are on shore. And then I was about 200 yards offshore, and I was dodging bullets. And so a voice asked me, "Do you want to live or die?" And I says, "I want to live." Then move your head. I moved my head, I moved over my head, and the bullet came by and zip, hit my bayonet, spun me around, and I fell down. And I got up, and I said, that was it. I had the screwy notion that every action, there was one bullet with your name on it. That was my bullet. And I said, that's it. And so I got up and I started walking in through all this junk, and I walked in to about 200 yards. And I just walked in, I didn't give it a name. Then I said, well, I got about 50 yards offshore, about 50 yards offshore, and I said, that's enough of that, so I just ran in. But the beaches were lined with Marines, with dead Marines, live Marines. There was a whole bunch. Must have been, I don't know, 2,000 or 3,000 lined up around.
Well, not hit yet.
Yeah, I was hit.
Oh, you said you got hit, the bayonet.
You was
Hit
already-
The bayonet was hit, and when the bullet hit my bayonet, it ripped across my back, but it gave me a cut me about 7 inches.
That was just sheared though.
A surface, yeah.
The surface was like a burn.
Yeah, it broke the skin, and
Yeah.
I was bleeding. But guys were getting hit, bullets were going through them, and they didn't feel it. They knew that later on that they got hit.
What happened to you after you got it? They ship you back to the
Oh, no.
hospital?
I got out shore, then I was hit, and we advanced and we cleaned up the island for the next 3 days.
Then where'd you go?
Then we marched off. When we were marching off the island, there was a guy with a camera, and I got into moving pictures.
So you're on one of them pictures where everybody's in a line of walk?
Right. And then I guess the scariest moment that I ever had in my life was getting off the island. Everything was all done, and I was safe. But I had to get from the island to the ship, and that was the scariest time in my life. Because the boats were loaded down about 4 inches below above the water.
Where they bring it? Down to Hawaii?
They took us we went to Hawaii. We regrouped in Hawaii.
Okay, then, Saipan. Okay, you go to Saipan, it's the same type of landing, I imagine. but
Saipan,
similar type.
yeah, the whole beach was loaded with guys, and we were trained. We had an objective to shoot at and go for. But when we got on shore, the Japs already built trenches out there, and they had their guns trained in on those trenches. As we filled up the trenches, the Japs would either machine gun or drop motors in that, and then we.
What do you mean, you went in the trenches and they were already zeroed in on the trenches?
Yeah.
They did that in Vietnam.
Mm.
Those guys are smart.
Right. They
know
put
you
us in
wanna-
the trap.
They know you want to jump in a hole.
Yeah. So I said, what the hell? Everybody's on shore and they're being bombed and strafed and machine gun. I said, the hell with this? This is not a place to build. So I advanced in. I went in further for our objective. And on the runway they were dropping bombs in sequence. And they would go across the airport, and I figured out the pattern of their falling. So I gradually advanced. I'd go. We had ahead of the front lines.
Okay, then you got hit there somehow.
Oh, about the third day, we built a perimeter, and we dug foxholes on the front lines. So I picked my spot under a tree, and I started digging. And then I said, well, I don't think I'll be here. I'll pick another spot. I picked another spot, and I dug there. And about 4 o'clock in the morning, we were the center of this target. And the tree that I picked, a shell came up and killed the guy under that tree in that trench, and he set off the phosphorus grenades, and there was other guys wounded. So I got up and I started helping out these wounded guys to get them out of there. And while we were carrying out a guy, the knee motors spotted us that there was action, so they started dropping the motors at us. And we were, as we became the target, then the guys that were helping out the wounded started getting hit too. So I got hit, that's where I got hit.
Shrapnel from a mortar.
Shrapnel from where I was laid down, like I got hit in the arm. Felt like a cigarette burn.
That was still a surface burn, right?
Oh no, it was.
You still have the shrapnel in your arm?
Yeah, I looked at it. It wasn't very bad. I could have stayed, but I started thinking, I was hit at Saipan, I got tar, I was hit here. That's twice I hit. The third one was probably serious. So I said, well, I'll take care of myself, and I let myself be evacuated.
Okay, and then after that?
Well,
We go back to Hawaii then?
Then I got aboard a hospital ship. We stayed aboard a hospital ship. Then we went to transfer to a hospital station. Then from a hospital station, from Evie, Kwajalein. That's right across from Kwajalein. There was a hospital there. We were transferred there and recuperated, and then the doctors looked at me and they figured it was psychoneurosis. So I went with the bunch back to Hawaii.
Yeah, what about was this now? Where?
I don't know. About 1943.
43. And then what happened for the remainder of the war?
Well, I was hospitalized, and then we were sent back to the States for rehabilitation for a while.
And that's how you finished up your service?
Yeah.
I was in high school, and they said they wanted me in the service. That was in 1943. I graduated in 43, and in a couple of months I was in the Navy. They called me a selective volunteer.
A selective volunteer?
That means that hey, we're going to take you. You have a choice. You want to be in the Army?
Well, before that, you wanted to volunteer. Remember when you was a senior?
I remember that.
You had to ask, you had to get the permission of your father to sign it. And my father wrote me a letter. Somehow I found out that he was going to join up. I said, listen, make him finish high school first.
Yeah, I remember that. And I was glad he did that too. Because I went back to school, I finished high school, graduated high school.
Right.
John,
This is when the war was still going on. I was in England.
Right. That was in.
And then when you joined the Navy, did you go to pharmacy school?
Yeah. As I said, I was selective volunteer.
Yeah.
And they said you were going to be in one of the services: Army, Navy, Marines, or Coast Guard. Which would you like?
Okay.
That's a good picture.
Oh, I thought the Coast Guard, the Navy has nicer uniforms.
Oh.
And I knew of somebody that went,
That's the door.
Eddie Mascala. He was a pharmacist mate in the Navy.
I got some more home.
And I thought, gee, that seemed like a nice job to have, so I did that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So how many months did you spend at that pharmacy school?
it was 8 weeks.
8 weeks. And then where did you get shipped to?
Well, I went to boot camp first
Before you went to...
in New York.
Yeah.
And then they sent me to medical corps school in Maryland.
Maryland.
I got to Maryland, and they shipped me to...
London?
That's right. London.
That's where you stayed a long time, wasn't it? That's the time.
Most of the time in London.
I was in Newport, and also in New London. I was attached to the CB. I was on a CB base for a while.
Oh, Stevie?
Yeah. I was working in the hospital there as a clerk typist in the medical records office. Just type medical records all day long, along with civilian employees.
Mm-hmm.
And then they shipped me to New London. I was attached to the submarine base, New London, Connecticut. Again, medical record office. Part of my job at the base was to drive ambulance, and the ambulances also took care of the families of the people on the base, and it was fun driving ambulance because you really had a feeling of power because you get in that ambulance and then you turn on the sirens and pathway just opened up for you.
So when did you get out?
Well, when the war was over in 1945.
Days.
Oh, yeah, you go on and on of this.
As long as you're sitting there, Eddie, you got a service, can you just kind of, within 5 minutes, maybe 10 at the most, take us to present, I mean, that's a hard thing to do, but, hit the highlights, so to speak.
Well, after I got discharged from the service, they had this club called the 5220 Club, and where they give you, for 52 weeks, you can draw $20 a week. And
Compensation.
compensation while you're looking for a job. Well, I got boring in about a couple of weeks, so I got a job.
What
Working-
kind of job?
I worked for an envelope company in Springfield, Massachusetts. I worked in the advertising department. Sounds fancy, but it really wasn't. All I do is type up envelopes all day long in a room all by myself. And then later on, they had me doing some advertising literature and mailing that out, and I did some printing. Anyway, that got boring. I didn't like it, so I decided to leave home. I came to California.
Had you ever been to California before?
No, I just came out on a train, and 3 days later I was here, and moved into the YMCA. Got a job as a theater usher for a couple of months, very boring. And while I was at the YMCA, I also got another job working for California Electric Company, who had the contract to convert the electric current from 50 to 60 cycle. And while I was there, I worked as a payroll clerk, I worked as the dispatcher, and I had charge of a fleet of trailers and trucks. And that took approximately 2 years, and we had all of Southern California converted from 50 to 60 cycle. We had the industrial, not the industrial, but the homes.
Residential.
Residential, washing machines, phonographs, records, phonographs, and all small appliances.
You converted the appliances themselves?
No, we converted like a phonograph. You would have to convert it to run at the proper speed. They would change.
Replacing the motor?
No, pulleys mostly.
Oh, I see.
Washing machines, they would change gears.
Mm-hmm.
Small motors or anything like that, they would change gears.
You did the actual work?
No, I was worked with this crew that did the work. And we would go from town to town.
Yeah.
We'd go from town to town.
Converting.
All over California. And pretty soon, as I say, the job was over 2 years later. And I had a choice of either quitting or going to Canada and doing the same thing. I didn't want to go to Canada. I loved the weather here in Southern California. Ended up in Santa Monica, California. There I went to work for Remington Rand as a trainee. I used that GI Bill to get paid an extra amount of money, so I was getting the money of a journeyman typewriter man. That lasted for 11 years. I got tired of that, so I decided to go into sales. I went into sales for about 7 years.
Sales of what?
Sales of typewriters. And the company started going downhill, and things started getting, looked like the company was going to fall apart, so I applied for a job somewhere else.
Was that with Remington Rand?
Oh, Remington Rand, right. And the boss told me he didn't want me to quit him, so I obliged him, and a couple of months later I was fired by another boss. And went to work for a typewriter company in Santa Monica. Worked there for about a year. And then an old friend of mine wanted me to come to work for him. But I thought I was pretty well set in Santa Monica, and so I told my boss about my offer. And he said, well, maybe you ought to reconsider. So I went to work for my other friend, and it was a better job, more money. I worked there. I've been working there for 17 years now. I'm now vice president of the company. I own 10% of it. And pretty good job.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I am now.
How about family? You can just, in a couple minutes, talk about like when you got married and
okay.
that you're not married now and children were born.
Right, I was in Santa Monica, living in this boarding house. Met a girl there. She was 17 at the time. We got married at 18.
You got married or the?
She got married.
She got, well, she was 18, I was 25 at the
Oh.
time. And I was, at the time, working for Remington. They sent me to San Bernardino, worked there for about a year. I also worked in Hollywood, at an office there. And in the meantime, we
How
had
many
4
children
children.
do you have?
4 children.
And their names and dates of birth, if you can possibly remember.
I don't remember the names of them. They're about, Robert's 30 now,
Mhm.
and I have a daughter. He's married.
Yeah.
He lives in Santa Rosa.
And what's he doing for a living now?
He works for a drug concern, for a drugstore actually, and he's in management training. His wife's a librarian. They're both college graduates. I have another daughter, Janet. She's a nurse.
She's the oldest one?
Oh, no, that's...
Yeah,
How about, yeah, Susan?
right.
Susan, she got married while we lived in our home in the Pacific Palisades. She married Mr. Peatman, who's a tax assessor. He's still doing that now. And then there's Janet. She's a nurse. And she lives, she's married. She lives in San Jose, California. Her husband's got a master's in electronics, or he designs electronic calculators, computers. And then there's there's my youngest daughter, Carol. She's going to school in Santa Barbara. She's 22 now.
She must be junior or senior now,
Oh, she's going to a 2-year college. She wants to be work with children.
How long are you divorced now?
About 6 years, 7 years. I lose track. Like track of time. I live alone in an apartment. That's about it.
Play golf.
Oh yeah, I played a lot.
What's your pastime, Eddie?
That's what I do.
Roller
I play-
skating.
Oh,
What
yeah.
happened?
You roller skating?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I used to,
Yeah.
huh?
Roller skating is a pastime too.
Are you still going roller skating?
No, I decided I had a choice of either playing golf or roller skating. When I roller skate, it bothers my hip.
Oh.
So I can still go and I can still roller skate, but I have to quit golf for a while after that. So I just gave it up.
Thank you.
Well, after I was discharged in 1946, I believe it was in July, I went back home and, they had an offer of a job at the gas company. And, I was a candidate for a gas meter reading, but somebody else got the job, so I went to New York. There are 2 jobs were waiting for me. One job at Wall Street as a messenger boy, and another job is working with apprentice as a plumber, I believe, or was a possibility.
Apprentice.
Well, then somebody offered a job, but I didn't drive, so I didn't fit in with the program. So then I had another job offer at a Bible house, where I stayed for a while, and then that didn't quite meet everybody's approval, so I went to the old folks' home where I worked for about a year. Then I went to nurses training as a licensed practical. I went through that course for a year. And,
What was that?
licensed practical nurse.
Oh, license. Practical nurse.
Don't be in.
I worked for 3 months. I said, well, before then I had applied for professional school. I was overlooked. And I inquired about it, and they said, well, I should have been in school 6 months ago, and I started nurses training at Brooklyn State Hospital. After I was married, I was in Brooklyn State.
Now, what year is this now you're married?
I'm 51. And after I finished school, I took a job at Kings County where I was there all the while until I retired, which was in 74.
This was in where, Brooklyn State?
No, I worked at Kings County Hospital.
Kings County, oh.
No, I never worked at Brooklyn State. I just, apparently there weren't any jobs in Brooklyn State at the time. And I was, had a job at Kings County, just, in March, in the last of March. I've been there ever since, which is, on retirement in December 20.
When did your first wife die?
Well, my first wife died in 1966.
66, was it? Is that long ago?
Uh-huh.
What did she die from?
Oh, she died of cancer at John Hopkins Hospital.
Now, Gene is
That's,
And he was an adopted son.
adopted. Where's he at now?
Last I know, we haven't been in contact. He didn't want to have no more contact with Brooklyn. And the last I heard, I haven't heard since he was here. He, as far as I know, he's still in Ohio. He's working with some, last I heard, he's working at household finances. He's managing the office.
right now?
Oh yeah, he's married, and I guess last I knew he had 2 children. I guess one should be about 16, I guess.
Mm.
And this present marriage started when?
The present marriage was, let's see,
She knows.
70. Present marriage in 70.
Trying to figure out when to get married to you. Tough
10
work.
years? It's gonna be short. 10 years now? When I got discharged, I came home and I was married before I got discharged.
Uh-huh. I didn't know that.
You know, I got married December 7th before I got discharged, and I still had to be, I was down in Camp Davis, and then from Camp Davis, that was back in March the year that I got discharged in, see. And then 3 months later, in July, I got discharged. And when I came home, in September, I applied to go to college. That's when I
This is in Syracuse?
went to Syracuse,
Mhm.
but I signed up at Syracuse. I went there for 3.5 years.
Well, you graduated from Syracuse.
Graduated in what, 1949?
What was your major?
Well, I started out phys ed, and then in the middle of the thing, I switched over to, then I majored in sociology. I got out. And that's the time I took a test for the
Post office.
post office. And in the meantime, I was supposed to go out and practice teaching, because I was supposed to get a degree in teaching. And during the summer, I was supposed to teach, but I got this part-time job at the post office during the summer. I was making more money in the post office than any of the teachers that were already working, so I just kept on working for 35 years.
Now, you rode the trains. I always remember every time I'd go over your place, you were heading off for a train or just coming back. Wouldn't know your job was when you were in the train, sorting mail in trains? Was that what it was?
Right. We'd stop, we'd get on in Springfield and go all the way to New York and come back. And there were different jobs. Some jobs were You work 5 days, you have 9 days off, and you can bid every 6 months, wherever there's a job opening, you bid for it. If you got enough seniority, well, you change, you see? But as it was, the jobs weren't getting any better, but getting worse, because they were cutting the trains. So even though you had more seniority, you bid for lousier jobs.
Because this was the air, they were transporting more mail by air.
Right, and by truck. Yeah. And of course, during this time, after I got out of Syracuse, I graduated from Syracuse, and I started working with Swifts for about 4 months, and during the time I was working for Swifts, I got the job at the post office, and I just stayed with it.
Yeah, what about family background?
Oh,
Roger, Rita?
well,
Christine?
Roger and Rita were born in Syracuse while I was going to school,
Oh, I didn't know that.
you know? And,
How were you being supported? You working part-time or?
no, I had the GI Bill.
You had a little job, didn't you?
Well, on top of that, I had a job. Of course, everything was paid because I was what they call disabled. I was a disabled veteran.
What about family now? Roger and Rita were born in Syracuse.
Christine was born in East Long Meadow, and Kathy was born in East Long Meadow.
Now where are they at? What are they doing now?
Well, Kathy just graduated from Southern Massachusetts University, and she's working as a masseur now and looking for a job as a biochemist in the meantime. And Rita graduated from SMU, and she's got a good job in Washington. Been
What's
there for
SMU?
Huh?
Well,
She was a civil service, now she was a fair employment practice commission. She's a supervisor now. And Chris has been all over the country. She's been in Philadelphia, PA, and out to Berkeley, California, going through college up there. And she's been there for 8 years. She's come back now to live in Massachusetts because she doesn't want to get, she's heard so many earthquakes through California, doing it California, so she come back to Massachusetts.
Well, now, I don't understand that.
She was told that the earthquake thing.
Oh, the earthquakes.
She's running away from it. So she's coming back to Hadley, Mass. She lives now.
And Roger?
And Roger, he went in the service, and he spent 3 years in the service, and come out as a captain.
Now, he went to school where?
He went to University of Mass, and he graduated from the University of Mass, and spent 3 years down in Sacramento as a supply officer.
At McClellan.
At McLennan, yeah.
McClellan, right.
Yeah. He come out as a captain, and he's married now, and he worked for advisor for, I don't know, 7, 8 years. 5 years maybe, and then he transferred to E.F. Hunt. He's got a little girl that's 12 and a boy must be about 9, I guess. No, 11 and 9.
Now, what do you want to know?
And I know if most of this is true, because I was.
He wants the truth now.
What's that? What's your question?
Just if you can kind of capsulize from the time you got discharged out of the service until present. You know, the highlights of it.
I was discharged in '45. I was on the 5220 club for a year. Then I got different jobs on job training.
What types?
I was repair washing machines and refrigerators, and then I decided to take up electronics. I was being treated by the VA, and some linoleum mechanic, a refrigerator mechanic. I was learning how to read. Psychologist recommended that I go to electronics school. He says, "How would you like to be an electronic technician?" I says, "What's that?" And he says, "You go to school, you'll find out." And I went in and I learned how to be an electronic technician. And I got different jobs in the electronic field. I worked for, I finally worked for AFCO Lycoming in Stratford, Connecticut for 17 years I worked myself up from a senior missile technician to a electronic engineer, and I was finally discharged when the company lost the contract in the missiles. But I handled a great deal of money and work on the job for the period. My responsibility was pretty great at the time, and I enjoyed working there. And
After you left Michael.
after I left Lycoming, I got sick after I left Lycoming. After I lost my job after 17 years, I got bronchial asthma, and I almost died in 1971 in a hospital, in the VA hospital. And I've been sick with bronchial asthma for the past 10 years. And so it brings me up to the period right now where I'm disabled. I'm on disability. I'm retired. And
How about family?
well, in my family, I had 5 kids. The oldest was Walter, and of course there was Freddie, and Linda, and Kathy, and Valerie.
Where are they at? What are they doing now?
Well, we have Walter, who is now works for a surveying outfit, and he bought himself a house, and he's living by himself. Freddie has migrated into sales and is doing successfully in Billings, Montana, running a business, raising a family, and he has 2 or 3 kids and one in a pop. And Linda was married, and she's now having trouble, and she's living alone, separated from her husband. Valerie got married, got divorced, and is married again. Her son Dylan has been baptized last Sunday. Right now we're down in Tucson, Colorado, and we're having a get together.
Arizona.
Arizona?
Right.
Arizona.
I'd just like to thank everybody for taking the time here and spending a couple hours and getting this on film. I know when Ben is a grandfather, and if he can find a machine that still plays that kind of recording, it's going to be interesting to them, because I know if we all of a sudden found access to this type of material from a great-grandfather of yours, you'd be very interested in seeing it, and that's exactly the purpose of it, just to preserve some posterity.
Bring out the melody, bring out the sound. We'll play the music, you'll sing along. Makes no difference if the words you sing are right or wrong. Let's get together, let's sing a song. We'll tune up the fiddle, rosin up the bow. We're gonna whoop it up tonight, the band is set to go. We'll play some old and new songs, play them loud and strong. Come on everybody, let's sing along.
I'm looking for a place to go so I can be all alone from thoughts and memories, so that when the music plays, I don't go back to the day when love was you and me. Oh, moja draga, ja ci kocham, means that I love you so. Moja draga, ja ci kocham, more than you'll ever know. Kocham ciebie, kalem serce, love you with all my heart. Return to me and always be my melody of love. I'm looking for a place to hide all my sorrows, all my pride. I just can't get along, 'cause the love once so fine keeps on hurting all the time. Where did I go wrong? Oh, moja draga, ja cię kocham, means that I love you so. Moja draga, ja cię kocham, more than you'll ever know. Kocham ciebie, kalem serce, love you with all my heart. Return to me and always be my melody of love. Everybody, la 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 la, my melody of love. La 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 la, my melody of love. La 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 la, la 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 la. Return to me and always be